Hello, I want to thank you for joining me today. So, this is going to be a little bit different of a video here on Amy Loses It. Have a special guest waiting backstage to join us, and that is the famous JC Calamity Jane, who does homesteading and also a health journey. And she has the lovely chickens named after the Grey's Anatomy cast. Joining us today to celebrate her 6th month on Zepbound weight loss journey. She's also a type 1 diabetic and has some really great news on how that works for her. Oh, I just want to welcome JC Calamity Jane to the stage, and I am actually going to put up a QR code to her channel. So if you are interested in checking out her channel, just scan the QR code and it will bring you right to it. We just want to talk about your amazing Zepbound journey because I know it's something you don't get to talk a lot about on your channel. And also, too, it's rare to have somebody who is a type 1 diabetic taking Zepbound. So, do you want to tell us about, when you started, what precipitated you starting, and stats? We want to know all the stats.
All the stats. So sure. So I started. So I'll start with July and then I'll go a little bit backwards. So just I'll try to mark times as appropriate. So July 10th of 2025, I go to see my primary provider. At that point, even though I don't use this as my official starting weight, because we know how we are about our personal scale. So it's like,
Yeah.
But at the doctor's office, I weighed 292.4, give or take, that number. I've gone back and forth about saying the number after the point, and we all have our
Yeah.
feelings about that number. But anyway, 292.4, somewhere in there. And so my doctor was very clear. It's like, we've got to do something about it. It's like, there's this class of medications. He walks me through it. And of course, where and why I say I'm going to trek backwards a little bit is this would have been the 4th time I was offered a type of GLP-1. The first time was in about August of 2022. I was offered Trulicity by my endocrinologist at the time. And when it was the low price of $25, right?
Oh.
You could just pick it up at any pharmacy and it was there. And then, but I literally held on to that box because I was so nervous. The only thing I ever heard about it, and I know you talk about it on your channel, the only thing I ever heard about it was gastric issues. And it's like, why do I, I already manage type 1 diabetes, and all I heard about this was that it kind of creates a similar symptoms of gastroparesis, which is that slowing down of the stomach and things, slowing down of the digestion and things like that. So it's like, why would I, as a type 1 diabetic, want to take something that possibly could cause, complications that I'm trying to avoid, right?
Yeah.
So I held on to that Trulicity like it was just a dark secret or something in my drawer. A year later, my primary, like in 23, my primary offered it. In 24, I changed endocrinologist by this point. He offered it. So here I am. Every medical provider in the world is throwing this drug at me. And I'm saying, no, I don't want the problems. And so finally, the doctor looked at me and was just like in July of 2025 and said, we've got to do something. And he said, worst thing, if you don't like it, you don't want the symptoms, stop taking it. And I was like, okay, well, let's do this thing. So because I'm a type 1, we kind of knew going in that there'd be some, how do we get this on insurance and stuff. So I was not approved for Mounjaro, the type 2 version or branded of it. I know you'll use the appropriate language there. But I was able to get it under my BMI for the Zepbound. Took my first injection. That morning I weighed 288.4 on my scale was my starting weight. And I took it July 16th. That morning is my first shot day, 2.5. And the rest, as they say, is history.
So tell us then, how tall are you, and if you care to share your age?
Fair enough. Thank you for that. Yeah, height is 5'7". That's what I have on any official documents. I'm pretty confident I'm still that number. And then age 46. So
46. Okay, yeah. So honestly, I started at 304, so not too terribly different of a weight, but again, I'm only 5 foot tall, so that makes me a lot wider and rounder. And then also, I know from conversations we've had that Zepbound is not approved for type
That's
1
correct.
diabetes or
Right. And that
Manjaro.
Monjar, yeah, and so it's not approved right now, and primarily because there's a concern about with type, and we don't have to go too far down this road, but to give people an understanding, it's because like if you, so I'm a nerd. I think you probably would fit you in that category. So I read that little pamphlet that comes in the medicine box. I read that entire
Yeah.
pamphlet, and so, but it's also common knowledge that because of the impact, these drugs were for type type 2 and to help with insulin resistance, there's going to be a natural sort of concern about people having hypo, so low blood glucose readings, so hypoglycemia. And that is a big, 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 big caution for the FDA. So as an example of that, my insulin pump this is the Medtronic 780G insulin. So
Yeah.
this is made for type 1 diabetics. It took 3 years after the rest of the world for the FDA to approve a type 1 diabetes medical device because of
Yeah.
concerns about lows. And
And that
so
is a real concern.
unfortunately there are people who have lost loved ones who are type 1s because they something did not, either the device did not work or they experienced a low and were at sleep. And unfortunately, lows are serious. They're very
Mhm.
serious. And not everybody feels when their blood glucose goes low. And so it can be a dangerous thing. So the FDA is very cautionary towards drugs that can impact low blood sugar, or that can create low blood sugar, or low blood glucose. I like to say
Yeah.
glucose, but I do get caught in the blood sugar trap.
Yeah. So one of my questions, because really thinking about it, like when I think about like the symptoms that I hear that these medications cause, like especially with the diarrhea
Mhm.
and nausea, the constipation. Look, people get that from dieting all the time. So
Correct.
I'm not really blaming the medication on that. And that one is so easy to manage. Like, come on, people just need to get over the
Right.
constipation
Right.
factor. But I really like, for me, I kind of feel like when I'm getting the nausea and diarrhea, that it's really because my blood sugar is getting too low on these medications. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
before, like
And it
uh,
could be, yeah, it could be a number of things, and it could be a number of
mhm,
like, what did you eat? I have
mhm,
discovered along this journey. I think I did a vlog on it about, Pizzagate. I call it Pizzagate
yeah,
with yeah, because I did a homemade pizza. I was so proud of it, but I did thick crust instead of thin crust, right? And that
yeah,
that sent me for a topsy turvy. That's what they called in the for type 1s and type 2s, in the carb, people who are into nutrition, that's what they call a combo food. So you have a carb, you have a pretty intense carb of the dough, but then you have like a pizza, even if it's a supreme pizza, you have veggies, you have fats from the cheeses and the meat and everything else. And that's just causing a macro party in your in your body of like carbs, fiber, fat, and protein, that depending
yeah,
on what order your body chooses to process that in and of itself is going to slow down
yeah,
digestion. And so it's going to hang out. So you have because of the fat from the protein and the cheese, now you have fat, which is slowing down digestion of this carb that just entered your body. And so now you have a situation where carbs are just hanging out. And yeah, you're going to feel all these different things, and you're going to feel constipated. You're going to feel potentially nauseated because it's just hanging out in your body. So
yeah.
yeah, those
And
things
so,
will happen. So yeah.
and I think that kind of is one of the biggest things that, you and I both advocate for is like for new people who are afraid to take the medication, that their symptoms usually resolve themselves. So don't be afraid
They do, and then the
to use
water,
it.
making sure you're
Hmm.
getting your water intake in, and then
Yeah.
really, and what I will say is the symptoms, the actual symptoms that have been experienced. And again, our minds can take us places that are kind of opposite of what it are extreme. When I was hearing digestive issues, I was thinking it was going to be like stomach pain and all this other stuff, just like this terrible journey that you're on half the time because you're on this med. And what I would say is, yeah, the symptoms are nowhere near what
Mhm.
this thing I created in my head in 2022, right?
Yeah.
So
Because if you could go back and do it again, could you imagine like where you would be at today?
You know, I say that all the time, but then I wouldn't be on YouTube. So
That's true. That's
I don't
true.
know about, you know, it's an interesting thing, you know, you know, the journeys that lead us to places based on a single decision. So, you know, you never
Yeah.
know. You never know. But yeah, I look at myself and, you know, what was I thinking? Sure. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So in your 6 months, so how far have you gotten on your weight loss? How much have you lost to date on
so on
your
my weight loss journey, I do have my notes with me just because, you know, I do my weigh in and I'm someone that does their weigh in on the same day I do my, what do you call it?
shot, your
My
injection?
shot and everything. Like
Hmm.
I don't separate the days. And so let me get that. I had it up, and so bear with me. But I
Yep.
should be at I know I'm at 67.4 pounds lost as of last Wednesday. So the recording of this last Wednesday would have been let's see, January 21st. I've lost 67.4 pounds. I'm at 221 even,
Hmm.
221 even.
And how
And so
many, do
that's
you know
about
how many,
23.4% weight loss.
do you know about how many pounds per week that is?
That's an average of 2.4 per week.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's pretty,
I've shown you this. I don't know if y'all can, if
yeah.
this is probably
Yeah,
really
they can't.
bright, but I'll send it to you if it's something somebody wants to see. But I have my little Excel that does all the calculations.
Yeah, I do too. Mine's like got so many things on it.
Right.
So that's pretty darn amazing because I've only been losing at a like just under a pound a week. So I
Right.
have just hit, what is it, like 53 pounds down or something like that.
Right.
I can't remember my numbers.
And
I know I just went
and
up.
I'll tell you this, I wasn't anticipating that, you know, I did wait. Well, if you want to wait for this question, you know, when I did Weight Watchers back in 2012, you know, I lost about 100 pounds during that journey. You know, X number a year and some change later, it was about 1.6 was my average then. So
Yeah,
that if I had well, what maybe could I lose on this? That was my only, you know, that was
the
my
only
only
thing.
source of, okay, when was the last time I lost a good amount of weight in over a year period, right?
Yeah, because I know like most of the folks that we talk to that have type 2 diabetes are always grouching because they do lose weight so much slower
Right.
than someone who doesn't have type 2 diabetes. But maybe you're just such a better responder
You know,
to
I
the
would, you
medication.
know, the one thing I've not done on this journey, and I'll be the first one to say is because of its time. I just don't have time to do it. You know, there's a book, and I'm going to always forget the author's name, but the title of the book is Think Like a Pancreas. And so the use of GLP-1s within the type 1, type 2 has been around since the early 2000s. Even I think the author himself even used the GLP-1 early on. So, but what I would be curious about is, because I am someone who takes, you know, synthetic insulin essentially, I'd be curious how much of an impact, now that we have these GLP-1s, which act on insulin and the glucagon and things like that in our bodies. I'd be curious of how much, now that I have this GLP-1 in my body that is functioning appropriately, along with the fact that I have, you know, a manufactured insulin pump bringing me insulin. I'd
Yeah.
be curious as to the impact of that on how someone responds, and whether or not there's more resistance, even if you're not diagnosed with
Hmm.
type 2 or something like that, but because of other hormonal issues or metabolic issues that people have, like I'd be curious as to the role in which what's happening to insulin in someone's body has on how they respond. I'm sure
Yeah.
someone is studying it. I just haven't researched to see who it is, so.
Yeah, I'm sure someone is because actually I'm in the middle of reading the Think Like a Pancreas
Nice.
on your suggestion because I've been diagnosed many, many times over the years with insulin resistance.
Okay.
Uh, Luckily, because I always ate pretty well and never got to the point of type 2 diabetes, I was getting close to pre-diabetic before I started the medication.
Okay.
I think my A1C is at 5.1.
Oh, wonderful. Wow.
I think the highest it ever got was 5.6. so yeah, so I was getting like really, really close, but I'm at
Right.
5.1 now, which is really great. But I thought the book was absolutely fascinating.
It's so good. It's such a great book.
Yeah.
And he does a weekly, I'll have to share with you the channel. There is a type 1 diabetic YouTuber. He doesn't post a lot. I think the type 1 diabetics tend to be on Instagram and TikTok more
Hmm.
than they are on YouTube. There's a few, but that author he joins in on a podcast, I think maybe once a month with this. I'll send you the information if you want to post in the link. But I thought it was, like I said, I read it maybe once every couple of months just to kind of, see where I'm at in my diabetic journey, right? My type 1 diabetes
Yeah.
journey. But yeah, I want to kind of learn more because I do think there is a role that once you stabilize what the GLP-1s are doing and you get to a place where there's less insulin resistance, in my brain, there probably is there's a correlation there. What it is, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely, because if I remember right from reading the book, one, it was completely fascinating on all the roles that sugar plays, and it
Right.
seems to be almost the one of the most important things in our body, our
Right.
glucose. How many things that touches and makes function.
Right.
It was truly fascinating.
Right.
Um,
And then the fact that with retatrutide, that's introducing glucagon, which
mhm,
glucagon is the alpha. So, the pancreas produces two types of cells.
mhm.
The alpha
Yeah,
cell is glucagon, and then the beta cell is, I mean, there's more to that process, but the ultimate byproduct of that is glucagon, and
yeah,
which is the alpha cell, and then the beta cell is insulin. And type 1 diabetics know, our beta cells got attacked at some point, and that's why we no longer produce insulin. And
yeah,
so it's, the fact that here we are, we're talking about the disease of obesity, we're talking about metabolic issues in general. And here we are, these two alpha and beta cells in the pancreas is like, who knew they're the key to all this, right? Or
yeah.
some of the keys to all of this.
Well, and who knew that it was the key for other people who aren't diabetic,
Correct. Correct.
that it makes their body function properly. So I actually have a video idea that I want to put together for one or two videos down the line about, okay, well, my doctor was actually right about losing weight, that it does, it does relieve a lot of the problems that I was seeing the doctor for, but they are missing a key component
Right.
when they're talking to us about losing weight. And so, and really, it is like for those of us who struggle and struggle and struggle and cannot get weight off no matter what we do, we
Right.
eat in a calorie deficit, we exercise, it turns out that our bodies were defective.
Right.
And just like someone like type 1 diabetic that needs insulin, we need the
Right.
GLP-1, and I need the GIP to fix my brain and my
Right.
set point and food noise.
Right.
So it's amazing. I don't know. Sometimes it makes me almost want to cry how emotional I am
Right.
about how much this medication has done for
It's
me.
so, what I mean, and we don't have to stay on this. I'm right there with you because again, just think about the number of people in our lives that struggle. I think about my
Hmm.
dad who struggled with, and yeah, I think all of us, whether we said it out loud or not, it's like if you just did this, it would fix everything. And
Hmm.
here we are, that yeah, there may be a little if you just did, but now we have this thing that helps support. I like to say that, you know, Zepbound, Manjaro, Zempic, Wegovy, whichever you're on, it is setting up the environment in which the just do this can actually properly do what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in one of my lives, I'll have to link it down in the description. I did talk about Fractal and how the CEO and founder of that
Mhm.
company
Yes, yes,
had,
yes. I remember that one.
how that was the whole thing, that he got tired of hearing the doctors tell his dad, "We'll just do this," when his dad and his uncle were just doing that. But the type 2 diabetes kept progressing, and
Correct.
so no matter what they did, they couldn't stop it. And so he is in a race right now to try and actually cure
Oh wow.
the cause of what the GLP-1 is treating in our stomachs by
Right.
doing, I think it's in the duodenum. So they're trying to do a
Yes.
procedure that repairs the tissue that is then causing the problem that we're having that we need the GLP-1 medications.
Right.
So, yeah, so exactly that. It's like for your dad, they're like, just do this, just do that. And he can do that until the cows come home or the
Right.
chickens wake you up in the morning.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
Right.
so
But it's
good.
never going to get any better without the medication. So
Right.
tell me a little bit about then your insulin journey, because I know that you have had some pretty shocking results of with your
Yeah.
insulin
Of
changes.
course. Yeah. So I've had type 1 diabetes for over 30 years. Was diagnosed initially at 14. And I've gone through it all, the different, so typically you're given before you even leave the hospital, you have to learn how to give yourself the insulin injection. And this is when we still just had needles and pens, and not the
Yeah.
fancy, quick pens that, people get to use now. I mean, there's still vials out there that people use, of course, but
Yeah.
so I did the whole 9 yards. I did a long acting insulin, which is considered a basal rate insulin. So that's kind of that low dose of insulin that's running through your body throughout the day to just help with those adjustments. And that, it's a shot in the dark. Take X number of, based on your weight and your readings, here's a calculation. This is what you want to take at night to be your basal rate. And then you do, you get a bolus, which is, bolus is for when you're about to eat. Ideally, if you're a good, type 1 or type 2 insulin dependent diabetic, you take it, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes before, depending on what type of meal you have. If you're a good diabetic, after you've tested your blood sugar, you'll take a bolus insulin to cover whatever the current blood glucose reading is, and if it's elevated, it make correction adjustments, and then of course it covers the amount of how many carbs you're gonna have. And I know there's always a debate in this community about people who carb count. It's like, well, some of us have to carb count because I got to put a number into my insulin pump, so I'm carb counting, right?
Yeah.
And net carb counting, to be more specific. And so that's where I started, had, the needles and the syringe, and then went to the quick pen. And then in 2016, I was able to get the first Medtronic insulin pump that I was purchased. I tend to stay with Medtronic, but there are other insulin pump communities out there and manufacturers. I just tend to stay with Medtronic because I can order everything I need from one company. And so it just makes life easier. And so so that's where I am on my journey. And so since July, what has been most profound about, yes, the weight loss, yes, the 6-7 pounds, I will take it. I'm not saying I don't want it. I 100% want that. But what is most amazing about this journey is I've been able to reduce my total daily insulin intake, so total daily dose of insulin, by greater than 50%.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's
amazing.
Absolutely fascinating. So kind of what that means, and I was probably taking anywhere from 88 to somewhere in there from 88 to 110 units of insulin a day. I just do Humalog right now, since this serves as an insulin pump. And so maybe that was amount of units I was taking on average of 30 days. That's what I was taking. And I just even looked up my numbers before we got on this call just to have them. And I'm down to maybe like doing 44 units a day.
Wow.
That's been my goal. As I get older, I want to be able to take less insulin, because manufactured insulin in and of itself has side effects. There's cognitive things of having to take insulin and stuff like that. And so, it's been a goal of mine as I go towards retirement and stuff like that, that I'm taking, that I'm able to be at a healthy way of eating, journey, activity, etc., that I'm able to reduce the amount of insulin that I have to take on a daily basis.
Wow. Have you been able to calculate yet the cost savings from saving that much insulin?
So I can maybe do a real quick one. Or, hey, you're in the business, so you do the math. I'll give you the numbers and you do the math. So
okay.
I get a 90-day supply of insulin. That's about $40 when I get my 90-day. I have really good insurance. About 40. That's the 90-day supply, which is about 7 vials of insulin. So I am still on the September prescription. I mean, I keep up with my prescription, but I am still on the September prescription, and I usually get 7 vials. I just opened box 4.
Wow. So you still got 3 that you have in storage, and then you didn't have to buy
from
the
September, and then I went ahead 30 days, my 90 days in what December or November, somewhere in there. I did my next order, because I want to keep, I keep up with my order.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you save probably about $50. I know that's not
Right.
a lot in the world, buys a couple of meals, but
Right.
for someone who's like cash paying
Yeah.
for insulin, I know that it can get
It's
expensive.
well
So,
worth it. And then, but but
yeah.
think about all the other things, like, like I said, insulin has its own sort of realities to it. So to be able to take less of it, and the fact that, yeah, I can, that's how many days I can go without, I shouldn't say go without, but that I can reduce my insulin by that much, I mean, it's mind boggling to me that,
That is
I mean, never in my
crazy.
life did I think I would, that my, that again, the insulin pump made significant changes because I have a continuous glucose monitor. So I was able to kind of measure. It's always checking and
Yeah.
correcting. It's doing that work on its own, right? And trust the machine. I can't, but even in that reality, I had to make all these adjustments in order to exercise, in order to do different things. Like if it went too high, if it went too low, I had to wait to exercise. I had to do all these crazy things just to get to like the ability to exercise or to get to where I can eat, still even using the insulin pump and the CGM. But the fact that I can now boast that this drug keeps my insulin so stable, it's insane. Like I'm able to do a 50-minute Zumba class, and why this is important. So typically the math on activity for a type 1 diabetic, I'll just speak to type 1s, is that for every minute of high activity or cardio exercise you do, you can reduce, or your insulin, or sorry, your glucose will drop by that same amount. So a 30-minute heavy workout will drop your glucose by about 30, somewhere in there. And that's why they suggest doing a 15-minute walk after dinner, just to help with your body and stuff. And so I used to have to just play this whole, I won't get into the details, but this whole game just to get to the point of exercising, so it either wouldn't dip too low or whatever the case may be. Now, since I've been on this medication, I don't have to do a temporary basal using my insulin pump to like change how much basal insulin I get to prevent a low. I literally start a Zumba workout with my blood sugar at 109. And at the end of that activity, and you've seen my workout videos,
Mm-hmm.
you've
Yep.
seen, I'm not the most intense, but I try to get the job done, right?
Yeah.
And so I could start like at 109 or something and literally be at 112 when I end.
Wow.
It
That's
just
amazing.
stays stable. Like I can't figure. I mean, I get it. We understand that this was meant for type 2s, but what it's doing for me as a type 1, never would I. This would not have been in my deck that this is what this drug would do.
Well, because if you think about it, like in layman's terms, right? Because I'm not a type 1 diabetic, but when I hear you talk about this, I'm thinking, oh, well, if your blood sugar glucose level is at 110 before you start, and you're going to do 30 minutes of exercise, and that's going to drop it by 30 points. Well, then you're like, oh, well, then I need to eat something and ingest
It
something
becomes a
to bring.
game.
It becomes a game because then you're like, oh, when I'm exercising to lose weight
Right.
and burn calories, but I'm having to put calories in my body in order to be able to do the exercise.
Right.
So so then you're like in this never ending cycle of how, how do I
It's like I just want
exercise
to work out.
properly?
Like it becomes like I
Yeah.
just want to work out. Or like if I'm traveling,
Yeah.
I don't travel as frequently as you do, and this is like I will forever be jealous of you for this. But even when I'm traveling, every morning becomes this. If there's like a tour I want to do or this
Hmm.
thing, like well let me like here I am. Especially on cruises, here I am packing. It's like well let me have a to go. Let me just. I have like my little to go bag from the buffet, so
Yeah.
that because I have to plan for snacks. I have to plan to make sure I have
Hmm.
things in case my blood sugar drops, and I have all my glucose gels and shots everywhere. And, I'm doing all these things just to take a hike on this cruise,
It's a
and I
lot.
get it. There are people with other medical conditions thinking about all sorts
Hmm.
of things. But then if I get too excitable, then it becomes this game of like, well, I want to be able to eat this, 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 and that. But then luckily the GLP-1 doesn't let me do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just, but yeah, it was always this game of because I did limit myself. During my young adult years, I limited myself because it's like, I mean, I eventually got over that and did the traveling that I wanted to do. But there was a time in my life that I made choices based on what impact would this have if I didn't have a recovery item
Yeah.
around and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Well, and because like people don't always know what to do if you are, become incoherent because you're
Right.
Sugar level is either too high or too low. You don't, you're not tattooed with instructions.
Right,
So,
exactly. And then the willingness, because again, the recovery
yeah.
thing, depending on when somebody's recovering from a low, yeah, if
Hmm.
there's orange juice around, great. If they're hard candy and the person's still conscious around, then yeah, give them. But yeah, if they're not conscious, don't give them hard candy.
And
You
don't,
may not even want to give them orange juice, right? Like that's literally, like I said, I joke around that and I don't know how I didn't catch this until recently that the third drug on retatrutide was, I don't know how I missed that it was glucagon, right? But,
yeah.
you know, go around to type 1 and ask them what's in their emergency kit, a shot of glucagon.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
who's raising their hand to say, I used to, with my friends and colleagues, when I was in class, when I was a student, and then of course now when I would work, there's always I pick someone to be the designated glucagon.
Yeah,
If you see me go down to the ground, you're up. And the look they
yeah.
give you, right? Like, I
Well,
got to do
and
what?
my stepmom's a type 2 diabetic, and we were out traveling and she was out walking all day, but she wouldn't verbalize to me that she was in trouble. And
Oh my
so
word.
I literally like called her off and said, "Here, sit down." And like we went to like a dessert, like a cafe
Mhm.
that served a patisserie or something. And I'm like, we got her like some liquid chocolate,
Wow. Oh,
drinking
wow.
chocolate. And I'm like, "Here, like take this because
Take
you're,
something.
you're becoming incoherent and you can't, you can barely walk, and like you shouldn't, you shouldn't wait until you're that far along before telling
Yeah, and
somebody."
some people don't feel it. I mean, and then some people who do, and they do exactly that. And not everybody notices the signs of, type,
Yeah.
low can be very tricky. Usually my first sign of a low is that I get pretty like you could be like we could be in perfect conversation, jiving, doing all the things, and then that when that blood sugar drops below like 60 or 50 even, all of a sudden the words you were saying, you become like the
Hmm.
peanut teacher. Like,
Yeah.
I can't hear anything you're saying. If you're trying to get me to make a decision on anything, that will not be happening.
Yeah.
And then and then somewhere you transition into this. I think other creators have talked about when they've had low blood glucose, you just become this ravenous creature of I need sugar. So
Hmm.
everything becomes an option. And of course, if you're type 1, insulin dependent type 1 or type 2, and even non, if you go too far in eating too much stuff, then you get to play the roller coaster of having a high, and then it just
Hmm.
your body doing that low, high, low, normal, high, low for over a 24-48 hour period is
Yeah.
not good for your body,
Yeah.
not
And
mentally or physically.
and think like a pancreas, they were talking about how the glucose when it's too low cause kind of the same hunger responses when it's too high.
Yes.
So that's why even people who are full and have eaten will then still kind of feel ravenous because then their blood sugar is too high, and that
Yeah.
is what really the GLP-1 is helping uh manage, is because for people whose their glucose level was really swinging out of control either
Hmm.
way, it's really helping manage it and bringing it level. And so then they're not necessarily having that ravenous, I think they call it like hungry stomach or something.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I know,
It is because your cells are basically, because when your blood sugar becomes too high, it becomes you're dealing in a world of like it, that blood sugar has nowhere to go. It's kind of
yeah,
hanging out in your body with nowhere to go. And then depending on if you have resistance or if you're because again, that insulin, and I think you're the one, you did that beautiful chart on sort of how insulin, like,
yeah,
that needs to be like, I hope that's because I haven't been on because I just get your alert, so I just know when a video
yeah,
and I put it in and watch later, but so I haven't been on that needs to be the first thing on your page of how just insulin works. Like that needs to be the first thing.
yeah. It was the how the
Um,
GLP-1
right,
made everything work and how it attached
exactly.
and what it
So, I
did.
mean, it was
Yeah.
just beautifully done. But ultimately, insulin is a lock and key. Insulin opens up
Mm.
your cell. That is ultimately what
Yeah.
insulin is. And so, if you're sitting at high, that ultimately means that sugar has no place to go, but yet your cells
Hmm.
are hungry.
Yeah.
So this
And
is
that
why
was
your
my
body,
problem.
Right. So this is why your
Yeah.
body becomes this ravenous beast, because it's like the cells are like, you need me to function. Guess what I need to function? If you need me to
Mhm.
function, is I need that stuff that's sitting in your bloodstream right now. Well,
Yep.
and you have no insulin. You're either your insulin is either there partying, ignoring the ignoring that they need to go and they need to do their job and open the open the cell, or you're like me where no insulin is being produced and it's just like it's
Yeah.
waiting for the manufacturer stuff to get in. So there's all this stuff happening in our bodies that it's like, I mean, it's like the struggle of obesity is almost, I don't mean to laugh because it's a journey, but that's all you can do, because when you get down to the science of this stuff, it's like this little thing called insulin is just, it has such an important job to do, and if it doesn't, it just, the chaos it creates is ridiculous.
I agree. And so one of the things that I really felt on since taking the GLP-1 medication and dealing with my insulin resistance is I've had a lot of really good mental health benefits. Like
Oh,
it's really
nice.
helped
Yeah.
it's really helped my ADHD, uh the brain fog and depression. Like I cannot tell you how bad my depression was. And
Yeah.
I really hid it from my friends because I didn't want to be that Debbie Downer, but like I could lay on the sofa for
You know,
a year and not
yeah.
move.
Oh, I get
So
it.
have you experienced any of that? Have
Yeah, the
you
depression is real, and it's even called diabetic. I think it's diabetic fatigue. Correct me on that when you do
yeah,
your description and stuff. But um, you know, there's just the exhaustion of managing, whether it's because of
yeah,
medical costs or just here I am with this disease. The thing about the exercise, like, why do I have to do this dance just to go work out, right?
yeah,
There's just little things that come a long way, or you think you've had the perfect day, but then you get bad news and your cortisol raises up and that raises insulin, right? And so then you're like, oh, but I had the perfect day. And then now you're just in this frenzy of being frustrated with yourself, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it's real. There are times that depression sets in, and then if you break it down to the science of it, diabetes is the impact to every cell in your body.
hmm,
So the fact that it impacts your brain and mental health and all these things is because, yeah, ultimately you're not getting the nutrients your body needs in every cell for it to function
yeah,
properly.
yeah.
So
So do you feel that Zepbound has made any improvements in that department for you at all? Did you feel any mental
I
health
would say the
benefits from
energy
it?
and the clarity, one for sure. Energy and
Yeah.
clarity, like when all that stuff isn't just sitting in your body, your ability to
Hmm.
think faster, think quicker, all that stuff comes true. And I know there's people that get the fatigue and stuff, and again, you and I could theorize why fatigue happens and stuff, but we won't here.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say, yeah, the mental clarity is there, and then just the joy of not like. I mean, I never thought in my life that I could say it's like I'm not. I don't think about I don't think about what my blood glucose is doing.
I mean, that's such an amazing win. I mean, for me, honestly,
Yeah.
it's the anxiety. I used to
Yeah.
have anxiety from sun up to sundown. All I
Wow.
did was think about doomsday and about what's going to go wrong
Right.
next. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be homeless? And, is my cat going to
Right.
die? Like, who else in my family's going to die next? I mean, it was
Yeah.
just like, so for me, like, I don't know, like, that's why I wanna, like, stand on the street corner with a sign, like, "You must take Zep." But I
Well,
think
you might,
so
and then
many
the fact that
people.
I agree with you, and that and I just really hope, we're seeing a lot of the updates as it relates to, we're seeing the updates as it relates to some diseases getting
Mhm.
classified or getting approved by FDA, and we're seeing though it's not perfect, we are seeing some of the
Mhm.
accessibility open up, and with the pills coming out. So we know things are happening in the space there, but I really, and we know clinical trials are going on. So I'm hoping in the next 2 to 5 years we do start seeing more conditions added to how this medicine would benefit, and that there are, and you've already mentioned one, one person that's trying to kind of create different innovations, that we get down to a better science of what is happening in our gut, what is happening in the pancreas, so that we could solve it earlier.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just so much dependent on that.
Yeah.
Um, I was just really shocked about, like, the nerve endings and a all the other things, the brain.
Yep.
Even like when they were talking about why people get dental disease when they have diabetes,
Oh, number
and all,
one,
all
no,
of the
it's in the
things.
infect. It's microvascular is usually the first. So, think of small vein,
Mm-hmm,
micro versus macro. So, so that's why a lot of times, and I think I've shared this in chats before. A lot of
hmm.
times, it's that your eye doctors can identify somebody being type 2 diabetic before anybody else because they start
Well,
seeing the changes in their
and
eye health.
and actually that was one of my biggest triggers to go really advocate to get
Mhm.
Zepbound, was because I went to the eye doctor and they're like, "Oh, well, have you had like a diabetic event or anything
Yep.
recently?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, my A1C is at 5.6, so it's possible that I've been
And that's
having high blood
fascinating.
sugar."
And that's fascinating. You were able to see that at 5.6. That's what's really interesting is that,
Well, I could have been having like
yeah,
episodes of high blood sugar
correct,
counterbalanced with extreme lows.
correct.
Because so like because the A1C is an average, so I could have really been teetering, and I think like feeling it in my body, I think I was getting like really high and then really low, so like things were
Possibly
just
so.
not
Yeah,
working really.
throughout that period of time, you were just kind of
Yeah.
you were had more of a roller coaster than you knew about. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
usually eye doctor, but the dental health is so important
Hmm.
because a lot of times infections in dental, like your teeth could not be, having pain or you're not having any surgery. And then a lot of people, because of whether the coverage or the cost, they're not
Hmm.
going to their doctors, their dentist appointments. And trust me, I understand it, but
Yeah.
oral hygiene is very important. And yeah, unfortunately it can, if you're sitting on an infection that's not treated, and especially if you have insulin resistance too at the same time, that can create some crazy impact on you. And so,
Yeah.
but what's the beauty about a lot of these complications is that if you begin to manage, if you treat, and I shared this last night on a separate interview, if you begin to sort of use the type of language as, oh, this is a disease, I got it. And I had to learn this. So this is not me talking from a profound or a high vaulted seat. I had to change my language around how I talked about type 1 diabetes. But if you start talking about it as, oh, this disease that I have, instead start saying the disease that I manage or something that I
Hmm.
manage, and you take real ownership, a lot of those complications can reverse themselves.
Yeah.
As long as
Well,
you're keeping your blood glucose where it needs to be.
and you're lucky that at this point, like a lot of doctors are very up on the disease
Yeah,
of diabetes, but they're not necessarily up on the disease of obesity. And I think
that's correct.
it's going to be up to us to advocate. So for those of us who have got the knowledge and have learned about it and know what's going on in our bodies, we have to advocate for ourselves and actually teach our doctors. So
Right.
when we
Yes.
go, I had to teach my sleep doctor. I'm like, hey, like, can you try and prescribe me Zepbound? He's like, well, I'm not comfortable because I don't really know anything about it. And I'm like, well, here, let's have instead of talking about me on
Yeah.
my appointment, let me tell you
Right.
what I've been doing on Zepbound, and let me give you some resources. And, here are all like and I'm not talking about just like random things on the internet I found. Like these are things from like the NIH, from other doctors, from
Well,
like real
you have
clinical
to wonder how much
trials.
that's not getting, because one would, again, the way the world works and what actually happens are two different things, and I respect that.
Hmm.
But if the FDA is approving a medical condition, you would think there'd be some, and I get it. It takes time for news to trickle down, but you would think there would be some just quick, informative. Hey, by the way, you may have patients this year that want to be prescribed this. Here's a quick cheat sheet on how
Yeah.
Zepbound impacts sleep apnea.
Well, let me tell you kind of the challenge with their office. And they are an office that really does love to make extra money, because they had also a ideal protein clinic, and I think
Oh,
they
okay,
still have it. And I did ideal protein with them, and I did lose 80 pounds. But again, it didn't treat my disease of obesity.
correct.
It just starved me to starved me
Right.
for 8 months on 800 calories and like 40 to 60 carbs a day for 8 months. And then, of course, the minute I was off of it, then it just threw my whole system for a
Got
loop.
it.
But he said that so far they've only had some kind of training on Wegovy, because he's also in a in a cardiac
Okay.
office. And so they came in really to train the cardiologist, because Wegovy is FDA
Correct.
approved
Yeah.
for cardiac. So they came to talk to them about that, but no one has approached them from
So
Lilly.
I wonder, was it from someone? It was it Novo that came in. So I wonder if
It was
it's
a drug rep,
just
yeah.
one of the, yeah, and I'm sure, and you and I could probably spend days talking about sort of, why one gets more precedent than the other, right? So,
Well, it's money.
you know,
Money
but
talks,
but
right?
good on Novo that they're putting themselves out there, right?
Well, they're putting themselves out there because they're trying to make the insurance play, right?
Correct.
So they're trying to be on all the insurances and trying to get people to get their medication through the insurance care. Where Lily's
Right.
like, screw this. We're just gonna try to get the self pay option,
Right.
and we're gonna try and steer people to that. So that's really the two different things. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Eli Lilly for their employees actually used to have CVS Caremark as their benefits manager,
Right.
pharmacy benefits manager, and CVS Caremark dumped Zepbound and
Yes.
Manjaro off of the plan. So then Eli Lilly turned around and dumped CVS Caremark and removed them from their insurance
Right.
and replaced them as a benefit manager.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
So
was impacted by the whole CVS at the
yeah,
PMB, and I
me
switched.
too.
I went to an insurance that had a
Well,
different.
I don't have a choice because I'm
Right.
with a small
Right.
employer that has one plan, and our plan has CVS Caremark, but then also we're a small employer, so there's all these extra things that you have to pay for. And as I am the only fat lady in the office,
Right.
they don't pay for the obesity care. And
Right.
I had conversations about it, and I didn't get anywhere because, right, who cares about my plight? I'm like the one person. And because nobody understands the plight of the disease of obesity, they don't understand, like, I don't have a choice in this. Like, I need the medication in order to
Yeah,
lose the
and I
weight.
and it's it's a human. You and I again. You and I we enjoy
Mhm.
talking, so that
Yeah.
so don't let me go too far in this conversation. But we as humans, and I know there's a name to this theory. We have it's what is it the is it the sunk cost theory? Like we
Yeah.
have a tendency that we have to double down, even if we get new information and like, hey, by the way, I know we've known this this is what we said for the last 70 years, but here's a
Yeah.
new piece of information. I don't know if it's because we tell our brains I don't have enough room for new information, or we just don't want to change our mind. I
Yeah.
don't know which it is, and it could be a combination of both, right?
Well, yeah.
But there's a responsibility. We each take on a profession in our lives that carries a either a stated responsibility and an unstated responsibility. And, and if there are new effective ways to treat patients, we've got to have the responsibility to learn them and get enough
Yeah.
information to get people on the road.
Well, I mean, some of it is, the age of your physician. Like, how much training do they keep up on?
Right.
How much are they willing to listen and learn about it, and then their own personal bias, right? There's a lot of fat shamers, a lot of fat haters out
Correct.
there, and they don't actually take the time to learn about, it was the same. Like, I know a lot of us went through the struggle with alcoholism, and when that became marked as a disease, and for someone who's never had alcoholism, I don't quite understand it. But now that I've been diagnosed with the disease of obesity and I know what it's about, I can look at that and drug addiction and go, oh, wow, I think like
Right.
it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and now they're actually investigating this medication to use for
Yeah,
people
because
who have
it's been
alcoholism.
shown to have an impact on the amount of alcohol people drink. And so
Yeah.
again, why not? Why it's available. Let's make it more accessible to individuals. But I'm going to always say that about any medicine. Like I said, there's a whole issue in the world for type 1 diabetics or diabetics in general when it comes to the cost of medications, that it can get kind of tricky for people
Yeah.
without insurance through their work and stuff. And so we
I I
again,
just don't
medicine.
understand.
yeah, medicine shouldn't be this thing that's dangled in front of us, but
Yeah.
here we are.
I do not understand, honestly, why diabetics have to pay for insulin, because it is not a choice. It is literally like, you know, it is a medication like above all medications that are out there, like insulin. Like
I
you
don't. I
have
mean,
to have it.
yeah,
I don't
because there's only so
understand.
many days I can go without this, right? And
Right.
in the days in between not taking it and taking it are not going to be fun. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like not going to be this pleasure trip, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's as necessary for you as eating and drinking water, taking
Right.
in food and water. Insulin is as just as
It's like
necessary.
blood. It's like
It's,
it's
yeah,
blood. It's like I need blood pumping through these body. I need insulin pumping through my
yeah.
system. So yeah.
So, so let me ask you. So now that like you're getting what is your goal weight?
Go weight more so only because I know what because again I lost that weight doing Weight Watchers. I know what
Yeah.
one I know what my 30 in upper 30s weight loss at somewhere 160, 165. I know what that
Okay.
looked like. I did get lower than that on Weight Watchers and I didn't feel because a lot of this is based on sort of what's my how is my energy, how am I move like for me a goal weight needs to be associated with how I'm moving about my
Hmm.
day, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Do I feel confident in moving my body? And when I got lower than 160, 155 wasn't even that horrible, but anything lower than that, I just didn't feel comfortable moving. It wasn't a fragility, but it was just sort of I don't know how to describe it. I just didn't feel strong or confident in how I moved.
Yeah.
It was all, but again, it wasn't a frailty. It was just sort of, again, I can't really truly explain what it felt like. So I think I'll know closer when I'm like at that 170. I'll know closer to what I'm trying to get,
Yeah.
but it more than likely will be like that same 160. I'm
Yeah.
happy there. So I think, the whole BMI chart will tell you something different, but yeah, no, I'm not getting down that will not be a number that I'm striving for. But
Yeah.
I do like I do like how I felt at 160 and as far as like moving about the world and doing all the things I need to do with the chickens and around the yard and everything else. So,
Yeah, because my friend Pamela is about 5'6", 5'7", and she
okay.
just hit 160. And in my mind, she looks a little bit skinny, but I think the challenge is because over the years we are so used to seeing increasing body size that we don't know what a normal body is supposed to look like anymore.
Yeah, but you'll start seeing it because even now, like when
Hmm.
I don't, I can see like,
Hmm.
even though it's my face and not my body, like I can already sort of see and I hate using those phrases to this, to that, but I can
Hmm.
already see sort of like, I don't know that that's I don't know that I want to get lower because I kind of like my
Yeah.
shape, like my face shape right now.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it right now. So I don't know that I want to get less than that. But I'm like I
Yeah.
said, what did I say, 221 flat.
Hmm.
So as I get closer, I'm going to see, hopefully it's not taking a whole lot around here and it'll just kind of be, but again, I can't pick and choose. Like,
Yeah.
one thing you know this about me, I'm just letting this process happen. I'm not thinking about, spot this and spot that and what my arms look like. It's just let the
Yeah.
body, I do my workouts, I do whatever. This isn't
Yeah.
simple. Like I keep this journey just as, I don't want to say simple as possible, but I throw out a lot of the complications if I can.
Yeah.
Because again,
Yeah.
I'm a type 1 diabetic.
I
If
guess.
something's going to be complicated, it's going to be that,
Yeah. Not a
not
weight
taking
loss
an
journey.
injection once a week.
So
Uh, so
let's
yeah,
think about, so like where you're at. So I've got kind of two-part
yes.
question here. So like thinking about, okay, well, what dosage you're on now versus like when you then get to your goal weight. So how do you think you're going to manage that? So what are you at
So this is
now?
a good question. So I'm on 7.5, and I've
Hmm.
taken my, help me out here. I think I'm on my seventh shot of 7.5. And 7.5 is a doozy. What are you on?
I had been on 7.5 and I never had any issues with that level. I just took 10 this past week. because I was starting to get some food noise creeping
Yeah.
in, and I've been kind of struggling to get out of the 250s. I've
Yeah.
really been
Yeah.
stuck
Right.
around like
Yes.
253, 252.
Right,
So,
got it. Understood. Yeah, 7.5 has been like I think I'm finally over where I've got to eat small meals throughout the day. Like I'm
mhm,
able to eat like what I'm calling a full meal these days. So I'm on
yeah.
7.5. I was actually sad to get I was hoping I'd be able to coast because I was on 5 for a long while. And then I really enjoyed 5. So I'm on 7.5 right now. Like I said, whatever the math, I'm at 221, and so to get down to what, to 160, is that what, 80, is that no, that's what,
It's 60 pounds.
60 pounds, 60 more
Yeah.
pounds. So I hope to stay on, I hope to ride out as long as a dose I can ride out on. So I don't know what that looks like. So I would hope maintenance is just 5, and that I'm able to kind of
hmm
live in that world. But I know I've not gotten into sort of what determines your maintenance dose yet. I know 5 is considered a maintenance dose, but I don't remember I guess the other ones are just dependent on the person, the maintenance dose.
It's all over the place from all
Yeah,
of the information, all the videos I've watched. Everybody's maintenance is individual.
got it.
So
And that's good,
some,
which I think is a good
yeah,
thing.
some people go up, some people go down, some people spread it out
Yeah,
longer than 6 or 7 days. So some people do like half of 2.5, like every 2 weeks, but some
wow,
people are still on 15 every
got it.
single week. So I'm just seeing it's just varied all over the place.
Yeah.
It's all dependent
So
on our biology.
right, exactly. So yeah, so it's probably going to be a wait and see until I get to that stage. Like I said, I did not, because I was happy and doing so well with 5. I was actually kind of surprised when my body was kind of sort of indicating the signs that it was time to
hmm
titrate up. And what that basically was for me is I started, for about 2 weeks straight, I started snacking after 9 o'clock for no other reason than I wanted something. It was that
Yeah.
simple, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
time to change this thing. And so,
Yeah.
like I said, 7.5 has been a bit of a doozy because, again, the first 6 shots were kind of like, I just want to eat, but I just had to learn that I had to eat just smaller. That my little plate may take me 45 minutes to eat it versus just
hmm
15 or something. But so yeah, so we'll see how long this particular dose goes, and then if I have to go up, I go up, and if I don't, then I don't. So.
And any changes, noticeable changes in your insulin usage between 5 and
So
7.5?
surprisingly not, no. I was anticipating changes because in the past, when I've either lost or gained 10 pounds, I would
hmm
have to do adjustment to my carb. So
Yeah.
two things that get adjusted is your correction bolus and your insulin to carb ratio, and then your insulin sensitivity are usually adjusted for every about 15 pounds that you gain or lose. So the only adjustment so far that I've had to make was when I first started on 2.5. My endocrinologist had to make some adjustments because it's like, yeah, I forgot that I can't take a full coverage of what's going to cover my carbs, knowing that those carbs are going to sit in my body for a while. So I had more
Yeah.
insulin on board than I needed. So he was able to make those adjustments, and those have been the adjustments I've stuck with this entire time. I was anticipating there would be changes each time I lost that 10 to 15 pounds. And then
hmm
certainly when I went to, 2.5 to 5, and there wasn't a change needed to happen. And then there wasn't a change between 5 and 7. But that goes back to something is happening in the body to where I'm not, even though I'm pre-taking this, I would have had to make those adjustments to consider what your weight is, to adjust your insulin settings, and I've not had to do that. And again, it goes back to this medicine, along with being able to take insulin, is doing something. And I just, again, I in my capacity would not be able to articulate what that is,
Yeah.
but it's
So
stabilizing.
so that's really good to hear, because like the concern is, right, if you get down to your goal weight, but then you can't get a low enough dosage of Zepbound to stop
Mhm.
losing weight that then manages your insulin or glucose level properly.
Right.
So that was kind of like what in my mind had me thinking. how the changes in dosages would affect
Yeah, so
that.
so far, other than that, the initial getting on it was the only time I had to make that change. So my hope would be, and I'm glad you remind me when I get to that to
Hmm.
make sure I ask my doctor that question too. It's like,
Yeah.
can I
Yeah.
consider also what this is doing to my insulin? And maybe by that point, the FDA will have approved it for type 1, right?
Yeah.
Which would be lovely.
Or there
But
may be a
yeah,
new drug.
so
There may be no, there's probably going to be another medication out there, because I know they're working on amylin, which is also
yes,
another component
yes,
in the pancreas. So I don't know
yeah,
what role that medication would play for type 1 or type 2 diabetic. So that
yeah.
would be
So
interesting to
hopefully that's,
find
yeah,
out.
that would be a possible. So, there's things out there and things are coming. So yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah. So, well, I just really want to thank you for joining
Oh
me
yeah,
today, Jane. And again, everybody, there is a QR code in one of the corners.
absolutely.
So just make sure that if you want to check out her channel, you can either scan that QR code or take a screenshot, and then go to your photos and you can click on it. I'll also leave a link to your channel in the description of this video. So you do homesteading, cooking, chickens, lots of
Chickens,
chickens. You go live pretty regularly, and then you have some long form videos, and you just did your seed catalog. That's why I'm wearing a tomato
tomato,
dress
yes,
today
yes.
in honor of her tomato picking out. I was like rooting for certain tomatoes as I'm
Yeah, that's
watching you
awesome.
scroll through the website, because I have my favorites. And so I just want to thank you so much for sharing your journey, and definitely we'll keep in touch. I know I see you on my lives usually every Thursday.
Yep.
I usually go live Thursday at 6 p.m. And so everybody just make sure you check her out. And thanks so much, and have a fabulous day. And everybody else, please make sure you come back and check out my videos. So thank you.
4 cats, 1 scale, and a suitcase to pack. Zepbound in hand, there's no looking back. Cruising through this journey, non-scale victories divine. But can Amy lose the weight without losing her mind?